Okay, cool. Some people brought to my attention that there's a lot of stuff that's going on, but not everyone is aware of what's going on, like what's
Like what's
happening
happening
on all
on
the
all
work
the work
streams.
streams, like
Marinade
marinade
proposal
proposal
passed, and
passed,
we
and we
haven't
haven't
really
really
said.
said,
Alec, by the
Alec,
way,
by the way,
you're
you're
echoing.
echoing.
But
But
we had the marinade proposal pass, and then we didn't. I didn't do a good job of talking about like what had actually happened, like where we were on that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we can try this. It probably also makes sense based on the number of people here to do a written like updates. But yeah, so and then Joe, I'll also have you talk about the AMM. I just want to talk about some other stuff first. So to start off with the marinade workflow, so yeah, that proposal passed, and we worked with marinade, and that work is pretty much done. We gave a report to them to help them understand, to help them analyze what they're working on, which is, I think, still somewhat confidential. And they already paid us with the MNDE to the metadata treasury. And we still have some stuff. I have some stuff left to do on that, and I think Durden may also have some stuff left to do. But it's like 80% done. Um, so the Saber/vote market workflow is going well. We've got Marie doing the UI. I think that's coming along well. She can talk to that as well if she wants to. Uh, the Matt is doing the smart contracts, and those are also coming along well. I just today reviewed, or I reviewed part of a 4,000 line VR, which was not fun, in the repo. And so we're still targeting like mid to end Feb launch of the vote market. And we've got Connor, aka Sushi Swap Sad Boy on Twitter, who did the original MetaDAO hype video, like the kind of music video that we used to announce our launch. He's also going to do a video and maybe like some teaser materials for the vote market. So that should be fun. Being able to have like our first product, and it'll be like the MetaDAO logo, X Saber logo, X UXD logo, X Soulblaze logo. Oh yeah, and as far as that goes, so yeah, they've paid the first part of the grant, and so that's about like a third of the funding. So I think that multisig right now is like 20K or so, because we've also paid out some to pay for the work. But yeah, and then we get another third when it's done, and then we get the last third of the grant once the vote market has been live for 4 months. And then the last thing that I'll talk about, and then I can kick to Joe for the AMM, is the raise. So yeah, today, like just a few hours ago, RAR3 sent me his form, and I sent it out to the Discord, and I also asked. There was someone else who reached out to me separately, who's like a fund manager who wanted to invest, and so yeah, so far based on the form, I haven't calculated it like in the last hour, but it looks like we've got so far about $160,000 of interest of demand for the fundraise. But I think it'll be okay. Like a lot of people will actually get what they want. It'll just be the people who request the big amounts who probably won't be able to get all that they want. And then yeah, I think that's pretty much it from my side. Now, Joe, if you want to talk about the AMM proposal that just passed and kind of what the plan is there, that'd be great.
You're
I
muted.
can't hear you, by the way.
Are you muted, Joe?
Weird, because we heard him before.
Okay, well, we can pursue and we'll come back to Joe once he is unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. And when I'm speaking, is there an echo or is it just when other people are talking?
All good.
Okay. Great. Yeah. So for this AMM proposal, it's really trying to tackle two main sort of complications. The one is lack of liquidity, near sort of the fair market price, and the other one is uh, the current club, since also stemming from a lack of liquidity, is somewhat susceptible to games. Um, so this proposal is going to refactor some of the um, autocrat code with a really basic AMM. There's going to be a couple sort of quality of life changes in the code base, and there was one potential error where if an instruction was built incorrectly, then some funds could get stuck if the proposal passed, or then you'd have to wait around for the fail market to recalibrate, which would take days. So there are a couple things there that I think will just improve the code base overall, and make it a little bit more usable in the short term. This isn't a perfect solution. I do think that there will be a day when we can move back to clubs, which will be awesome. But just while we're getting up and going, I think this eliminates some foot guns. Um, so I'll be doing the smart contract changes. Nallok will be doing the front end changes, and there will be a sort of security review, but TBD on who will do that. We've got a number of really smart folks in the MetaDAO, so I'm not too worried. Yeah, let me know if there are any questions.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have any questions, but yeah, I think then well, just to add my 2 cents to the AMM thing, the other reason why I think it's valuable is because of the spam. Like today, we've kind of solved the spam problem by requiring you to pay rent for the markets. And so if you have to spend like $500, right now you have to spend like $500 for proposal and rent. But with an AMM model, but that's like not great. Like it's really, I think this is the reason why we haven't had that many proposals. I mean, we now have 5, which is pretty cool. Like, I mean, those are the 5 Futarctic proposals ever. In like all of history, but still, I'd like to see more. And if you are in a non-AMM model, you have this fundamental trade-off between having making proposals cheap and then getting a lot of spam or not. Whereas with an AMM model, you can require people to to provide liquidity at a certain price, and that could actually, if they set the price correctly, that can be completely costless to them. They can even make money from doing that, but it also prevents spam because if you are a malicious, or it prevents like malicious spam, because if you're a malicious person and you provide liquidity at a price, like say an attacker and I want to drain the MetaDAO, I could create a proposal that sends all the funds to my own wallet. Uh, but I would have to have the pass TWAP above the fail TWAP, and so I would need to provide liquidity saying that like the pass price is higher than the fail price. But then someone could take against me, like they could trade against me, and I would lose money by doing that. And so, yeah, basically, I think that's why I think yeah, liquidity is the other thing for me. It's like the spam issue and the liquidity issue. But yeah, I think that's. Or Nico, do you want to say anything? Do you want me to do
Yeah, just to clarify, this proposal, if it's passed now, does it mean that when it's developed, we move to an AMM model, or will there be another proposal to decide once it's implemented which one we choose?
There would have to be another proposal because it would have to migrate the funds.
Okay, makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, I think maybe in the future, what do you think, Nico? I'm thinking based on I mean, maybe we could have promoted it more, but it does seem like people prefer the asynchronous like updates. I don't know.
Over the community call?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
I don't
we're
know.
just yeah.
I think it's good to have them if people don't mind. But I mean, it's just me. I push for them because it's the occasion for people to talk together, and so sometimes it feels very formal and informative, and you just go over points. But sometimes it's more kind of a community getting together and brainstorming things. You never really know what's going to come out of it unless you try. Um, and yeah, and sometimes people have questions and they feel more comfortable to ask during community calls. And it's also give content that people can binge watch. And I mean, I don't know, it's just another medium. There were a couple of other things I wanted to ask. One was about the state of the UI. Maybe Nallok, you can let us know what's going in the issues and if there are some stuff that need to be prioritized or done.
Yeah. So, Dode had some IRL obligations and some other things going on, so we've kind of stalled out there. The last request was to see if we could get OpenBook v2 on the system, which is almost all done. Because we use a twap special program, the interface isn't a one-for-one mapping, but the data display is. So I was able to get the data display for the books, but not get actual trading or cranks or things like that working. But anyway, the video that was posted on like how to interface with the MetaDAO really brought up some significant nail scratching on chalkboard kind of vibes for the data state management. So like when you place an order right now, that order shows up in the order book, so that data gets refreshed. So there's other things that happen, like when you mint p meta and f meta, fail meta, that doesn't update your balances. And then the other thing is order books or placing orders, and like this can go away, but in the meantime we should definitely fix what we can. So the order book management or the placing of orders management is all in its individual accounts when that account technically has a substantial amount of orders that you can place and refill and reuse. So those are some things that I would like to see if we can't tackle. I know Dode said he's coming up for air soon, so at least state updates would be great so that we can all know what the balances are and things like that. When you take action on the display and prevent hard refreshes for everything. And then the stretch goal would be to get the data display and the opening of orders to respect the account structure rather than open up new accounts each time. We don't need to do that. And then the ultimate stretch goal would be if the balance and funds are available in the account contract for the orders, then technically I believe you should be able to trade it. So none of this like closing and opening accounts and then like withdrawing and doing all that stuff. If the market's open, you should be able to do that. So those are probably like the stretch goals. I'd like to see some more informative components to the UI. We've got a lot of bare bones stuff, but I've been like secretly working on that on the back end of like providing some more context for when you get to the application itself on like what you can do and how to do it. So that's kind of the update. Like it's all there, it's all pending. I think we've articulated everything in the GitHub issues. The code is open source. It's available for people to put in pull requests to, and we would like more help because you can move the needle quite significantly with some stuff.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, and I also think having the history of price action would be really helpful for people because, for example, I've myself and a couple of people I talk to, when you check the order book once or twice a day, you sometimes it's lifted and you have no idea what's happened when you were not checking. It's a bit hard to figure that out. There was another thing I wanted to talk about. It's the issue with the twap. Maybe I don't know. Do we want to explain what happened and do you want to expand on that, Prophet? Or
Sure, yeah, I could explain. Well, the T-Walk is getting better because we're now cranking it, but the issue with the T-Walk before, I think there are two main issues. One is that it's not very sensitive intentionally because, well, yeah, okay. So basically, this is how high level of how a T-Walk works is every slot at the top of the slot, it takes a current price, so like a market price, and then it adds that to a number called an aggregator. And then if you want to figure out how much, like the T-Walk, you take the aggregator and you divide by the number of slots passed. So like if the first slot it price is 10, and then the second slot the price is 11, then you would have your aggregator would be equal to 21, 10 plus 11, and then you could divide by two slots to get a T-Walk of 10 and a half. But the problem is if you just do that, then someone could manipulate a single slot and make the price like a huge number and would totally fuck up the T-Walk. And so what it actually does is it only allows the current market price that's recorded in the T-Walk to be 1% different than last slot's current market price. And what that means is that there has to be about 500, and it always starts at, I think, 10 cents, the current market price. And so what that means is that in order for it to climb to like $20, like 600 trades have to go through updating the T-Walk. And so at the start, we weren't really cranking that. And so the T-Walk at the end would be something really small, like, I don't know, I think we had, yeah, like a 12-cent T-Walk, even though the market was trading at $10 in like the first proposal. But that's getting better because we're cranking it. The other problem, though, that's will also kind of be solved by this AMM architecture is that with a club, there's a mid price, but like so if someone could clear out all of the asks, then they could set a really high ask and then a low bid, and they wouldn't really be taking any risk because yeah, that high ask, like okay, cool, if someone takes my ask at like I don't know $100,000 per meta, I'm gonna like that, and if I set a low bid, I'm also gonna like that, and so. What we currently do is we require the spread to be under 20%, so that if someone wanted to record a high T-Walk, they would also have to set a high bid. I realize this is all like pretty technical, but I just like this is exactly how it works. So if you understand this, you understand exactly how it works. So what we do is we require a spread less than 20%, and the problem with that in our current system is that there are lots of times where the spread is above 20% because we're just early, and so yeah, with an AMM, it doesn't work like that. There's no like order book. It's just a price, and then there's the fixed spread, which could be like 1% or I don't know whatever we decide, and so that'll get solved with the AMM. The other issue won't get solved though. We'll just need to crank it.
okay, thanks for the explanation. I have another question about you were trying to register an entity. Do do you want to tell us how it's been going, or?
Sure, yeah. I've been in contact with them. I actually sent them an email today. They're pretty slow moving, but the process is, yeah, it's ongoing. And yeah, so actually via that, I will KYC. I will have to KYC. It won't reveal my government name, but hopefully that can be like a signal to everyone that I'm not anon to like evade law enforcement or anything. Because yeah, like if the government wanted to figure out who I was, they'd be able to. But yeah, so that's going along nicely. It's the TLDR.
Okay. Okay, great, thanks.
Is anybody going
I
to
think we're almost
Mount?
done.
Is anybody going to Mountain Down?
I'm thinking about it. It'll be the last minute if I do. Sounds fun though.
I will be on the mountain. Are you?
I will not be. Unfortunately, I just didn't put it in the priority queue. But you know, if anybody needs any support or spirit, or pep talks or anything, I'll be around. I'm happy to push code remotely too.
Cool.
How much does a pep talk cost?
I don't know. I haven't set my speaking fees, but I was reading about Malcolm Gladwell because everybody was flaming me on Twitter for including him in my top 5 list. And I was like, oh, he's got a $20,000 per speaking engagement fee. I'm like, that probably seems about right.
That's not even that high. When I worked at Web2, we had someone who came in to speak who I think charged 150 grand for like a 2 hour, well, like an hour of talking and then an hour of taking questions.
Was that Obama?
It wasn't Obama, no. It was like I mean, it wasn't even a famous person. It was just an important corporate person.
I heard.
But yeah, I think that like when you have a really large organization, you can kind of rationalize stuff pretty easily. Or like,
oh, for sure.
even if this only provides 1 cent of value, if you amortize that across like however many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees, it's like, oh, it suddenly makes sense now.
Yeah, doesn't Tony Robbins, to be your mentor, like take 10% of your company or something like that too? So could work that way instead. We just, you know, we want a portion of total token supply.
Venture pep talkers. I feel like everyone working at the MetaDAO is kind of being a venture employee, right? Because we're selling time for equity, basically.
It's actually a brilliant model because like I've been thinking about this a lot with like how to align incentives, and like I think it's actually a really good model, like to trade volume for equity or other like pieces, because you get the alignment of the parties for like marketplaces and things like that seem to work out. So I'm quite encouraged by something like that if we can make that work. I mean, tokens make it infinitely easier depending on the legality of it all, but you know, like it's certainly like programmatically can deploy this stuff, which I think is really fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, one way to even think of it is kind of like you've got these DePIN networks where the people who provide value, like, I don't know, the 5G network operators are earning tokens in exchange, and then the other people, like the value consumers, are in some way, shape, or form burning tokens or providing value to the token. It's kind of like the MetaDAO is like a DePIN network, but like a network over arbitrary economic organizations. So like people do things that provide value, and then they get the token, and then people do things that consume value, and then that creates cash that can like be used for buybacks or whatever.
Yeah, I think those economics are fascinating, similar to like gaming stuff, right? Where you've got like these internal economies at play. And I think that more stuff needs to be worked on like that, and in sustainable ways that kind of make sense too, because you've kind of got this system where like you've described, right? Like you've got the consumer and the producer intertwined, and there's no, in all technicality, there's doesn't necessarily imply a middleman, right? Like the contracts can be the middleman. So unlike Uber and things like that, I think that this stuff can get really cool, and you can start to really optimize. Instead of for profits for shareholders, you can do a lot more, and it's closer to the consumer and end user. So encouraged by that for crypto as well, where I think we really fucked up in the 70s with maximizing shareholder value as a core principle of a business. And like,
Really? That's surprising that you're involved in the metadata then, because I feel like I wake up every day just trying to maximize shareholder value.
yeah,
It's my goal in life.
but token holders and like the interfacing with it, right? Like the metadata doesn't necessarily carve out, like the values directly pass back, right? Like it's intertwined in contract, right? Like it's not
What do you mean by pass back?
So like say I'm not a shareholder in Uber, right? But I'm a user of Uber, right? Like it's not necessarily that like Uber has created and facilitated a great environment that like innovated in a significant way, and then like now I can afford cheaper Uber rides because I'm a participant, like a shareholder. Whereas like with MetaDAO and these tokens, you can start to string all this stuff together. And like the pursuit of profit maximization isn't like, because it's distributed into the ecosystem. I think that that's what makes it more important to me, rather than like I think Costco runs a really solid business, and like I think that they do a lot of smart decisions where they, because it's kind of like a cooperative and membership plan. I think they've shown that this model can work too. So I think that there's just more ability for dissemination and integration with crypto, and that's where I would say that like you're not entirely profit driven. You're ecosystem driven, utilization driven.
I mean, couldn't you be those things in pursuit of profit?
For sure. It's just saying that that's the number one strategy, because if you did that, then like you shrink the company, minimize product offerings, and increase the rates, right? Like that incentive structure, I think alone is not. It doesn't necessarily cater, because like we just do stock buybacks all the time. Have one share of stock.
I don't know, Nallok. That sounds kind of communist to me. I, for one, am all for maximizing shareholder value.
Well, there you go. Listen, we can hold different ideals and say that they're in the pursuit of the same goal. We don't get anywhere without more users.
I agree with you.
I wanted to add, speaking about that, aligning incentives and everything. There was I think it was from you, Prophet, that you suggested weeks ago that when we have more time, we do a proposal for retroactive contribution rewards. And I've been thinking about it. And one thing that would be cool is to see how much the market would think previous contributions are worth to incentivize future contributions, maybe. And one thing that would be great is to make this proposal fail by having a high dilution for previous contributor, so we can see that the market just doesn't rubber stamp everything, and then we try to find a number that makes more sense and pass it again, maybe. I was curious if the people in the call think this is a good or a bad idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it might be helpful to wait until we have some of the architecture stuff worked out, but in theory, I like it. Or I'm not against it.
Thanks, Joe. What do you think, Dean? Sorry, I name random names because people are not gonna jump if not.
I spaced out for a second. What's the question?
making a proposal for reward previous contribution by deleting current meta holders.
In general, I think it's important that like people understand why they're committing time towards something and recognizing that. Later on chain, you can easily point to contribution based off of that. Like that's a model that kind of also works for us in Dean's List. So yeah, I'm a fan of anything that like if somebody could just look on chain, they would be able to understand contribution and involvement.
Cool. Prophet, you wanted to?
Well, yeah, I like the idea of getting a proposal to fail, especially a proposal that I agree with. I mean, we've already had a proposal succeed that I would have wanted to fail, but now we should have a proposal fail that I want to succeed. To test that the market is really like just not rubber stamping everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking about that too, there was another question. I think it's nallok who bring that issue up. He says that we need to improve communication, and it would be useful to have I think he called it a town crier, someone whose job is to pull the updates from everybody working on something and summarize it and push it on the Discord or online. And that brings the question that at some point, should we have a core team? I think it's a very good system we have right now where we just hire people as freelance for specific proposal with a defined scope and it's like that. But maybe at some point it would make sense to have a core team of people who are here, maybe not full time, but like they have specific responsibilities that they have to do over and over. And so, for example, Prophet is always going to be here. It's my take, my opinion, but for me, it would make sense that he was like working at the MetaDAO. At the same time, I'm very curious to see what the market thinks because Prophet will work regardless of being paid or not. So the market doesn't need to pay Prophet to have Prophet. So is it value accrual or not? I don't know what the market take will be on that. But yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. I think we still have to improve on the communication and structure. I think, but I'm not really sure how. And since Prophet is not trying to centralize everything, normally in a company you have a founder that say, okay, it's going to work like that, and if he's not doing it himself manually, he's going to name someone to be in charge of that thing. But on many aspects of communication, sometimes there is no one in charge. Prophet is doing a lot of content and explanation and education and everything. But yeah, if you have ideas in general how we could improve on that, I think we're still a young project and there are still a lot of stuff that can be improved. So please reach out if you have any suggestion. You can do it now or later. Or if you're watching the call recorded. If nobody has any more question,
I think it's a good idea
maybe
to have certain roles in places. I mean, like I'm not against it. My preference would be to have expiring roles so that like you have a term that for certain expires. So like say it's 3 months and then like you have to make a case for it to be reappointed or something like that, just so that like there can't be no matter what you do, there can't be a dictator in chief. But I do think that role is important, especially where we are right now in our journey, because communication is key. And then like you're gonna have to go out to Prophet and pry it out of his cold dead hands to get this information in many cases. And I think that somebody that's persistent and teetering on annoying is how we get there with a lot of people that you could ask me to write a 2-page article and I'll write a 2-page article, but until somebody tells me to go out and do it, I'm like it's at my own leisure. So I'm very appreciative of people that are like point me in the direction. So that's kind of where I put it together.
Yeah, and it put also the question that if we view Prophet as an asset of the MetaDAO, he has a limited set of time each day, and so if he spends all his days doing communication, generally or individually with every people, he's not spending time on other stuff that needs to advance too. So maybe there is some value in taking part of this burden off his shoulders, even though he's still going to be involved in that because he's the one with the most context for now, at least.
Well, and I think we can run experiments, right? Like, there's nothing that says we can't appoint this for like a 2-month stint that says, you know, we want a bi-weekly update that's produced and then like content created for Twitter that can be shared, and, you know, like come up with some standards, I guess, is what I would, you know, like expectations for the role, and then put a dollar value on it and say it'll expire after 2 months. And then if it looks good and it was useful to us, but part of this too, I think, is just like not having the fear to experiment with stuff and see what's, you know, what comes of it, as long as it's like reasonable, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense probably to allocate $40,000 to that, but maybe something that somebody could be encouraged by and stimulated to do already, and then this is kind of the thing that kicks it over to the edge. So that'd probably be my viewpoint on it, is like, you know, if anybody has ideas on like how to do this stuff, or if it's even relevant or necessary, you know, push it out to market. And, you know, if it's an issue with trying to get a proposal on chain, then contact somebody or one of us, and we'll get the proposal on chain as long as you draft it up. So I think more of it should happen.
Yeah. I like the way you frame it with you have to renew every 3 months with the market, and we judge if you added value or not. And like the first proposal will be to like try to take a bet on like this person will add value by doing this task, and then it's do we renew this or not? Yeah. I'm done on all the points I've noted that we have to go over. So now either we do Q&A, or if you guys have like other stuff you want to else, please do.
I was just gonna say that, like, treat it as if the role expires. You know, like, that's the way I'd look at it. It's like, do you even need a president? Do you even need a, you know, like an appointment of this role, so that the role itself expires, and then somebody not only justifies their, you know, their you know, their appointment, but also the appointment of the role itself, right? I think that could be cool, because then you kind of have this structure that can morph, and you're like, hey, we're at wartime. We suddenly need all these generals and all these different roles, and like, but then you don't ever give somebody the safety or the guarantee that says like, oh, we'll always have a communications director. And it's like, well, what happens if you don't need a communications director, or that role shifts over time? So I think that's the way that I look at it, more than just people, is that the role should be justified itself as well.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so I think now we could probably wrap up, right?
Yeah, I think so.
What's the deal with all this? What's the deal with all the feud archists that are in Jito governance? What's going on there?
I think it was just a coincidence.
Oh, All right. Well, yeah, we can wrap it up. Sorry. I had to interject that because I noticed some things.
No worries. Well, thanks everyone for joining and brainstorming with us. And sorry for my accents. I'm a bit tired.
Oh, good. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Cheers.